working. We've got Mr. Frank Manning in the studio. Frank, thanks for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to see you again. Frank comes on once every few weeks and talks about legal issues that every one of us as small business owners, including myself, have to deal with from time to time. And he's got a really important topic to talk about today. Frank, what you got?
Well, in thinking about what we should discuss today, it occurred to me that there are people we often talk on this show about creating and starting a business. So once the business is rolling, what I wanted to talk about today was protecting the business, protecting that thing in the business that makes you unique, and protecting it not just from enemies foreign, but domestic as well, potentially. And what I mean by that is employees. Mm-hmm. So the purpose of today's conversation is to really a three-step process. First, identifying what in your business makes you unique. The second is to determine whether or not the thing that makes you unique is protectable. And then the third, of course, is the methods to protect it from your employees who learn your secrets to the trade and don't take them onto their own and become their own entrepreneur.
Oh, I can understand that. In fact, I have an acquaintance of mine, Frank, who just had that situation happen to him where he had a rogue employee on this gentleman's time as the owner of the company, actually take business away from him, and he figured it out, and it really, really hurt the company. And you've probably seen that quite a few times.
I've seen it in all settings, from family businesses where a member came in and learned the business through the family and then didn't like the dynamic and went out on their own. And
wait a minute, a family business did that?
Family business, yes, sir. Went to litigation as well in the because there weren't safeguards in place, some of which we'll discuss. The employee left, started the business, and the court upheld it.
Oh, my goodness. That kind of ruins Thanksgiving dinner, doesn't it, when something like that happens?
That's not a strong family bond.
That's not a strong family bond, no question.
Yes.
What do you do to protect yourself?
Well, the first thing is identify what makes you unique. If you're running a hot dog stand and you're buying hot dogs at the grocery store and you're boiling them in water and you're handing them to people in a bun, there's not a lot there. Maybe it's your corner that makes you unique, and that's something you protect. If your secret to success is hiring happy people, well, that's not a big deal either. That's a great philosophy, but that's not necessarily protectable. But if you have a secret sauce, by way of example, there's several places that I've frequented that would tell you that their sauce, either their red sauce or their barbecue sauce or whatever, is a family trade secret. You got to identify that's the thing that makes you unique, and that's the first step, being really honest about what sets you apart from the other businesses. Because once you've discovered that, let's use the secret sauce as an example, then you need to actively take steps to protect the knowledge of who knows what that sauce is.
That is really interesting, Frank. I never thought of it that way, but you're right. There's all kinds of secrets in businesses. There's all kinds of things that people can get a patent, and maybe an employee knows how to get around the patent.
Exactly.
Things like that. So, okay, what steps do you need to take to protect yourself?
Well, once you've identified, we'll use the secret sauce. It's just easy, but it can be client lists. It can be methods of calculating estimates. It can be any process that you have created that no one else has, or at least to the best of your knowledge. But once you've identified it, then you need to take steps to protect who has that knowledge base. If everybody on the staff, from the receptionist down to the person that walks through at night and cleans the garbage cans, knows what that process is, you haven't done a very good job protecting it. And as a consequence, that's a factor that the courts and the people will look at to determine whether or not this is truly a secret of your business. So the first step is, once you've identified what it is that makes you unique, protect that knowledge.
Can we talk about that process?
Of protecting it?
No, the process that makes you unique. A process that makes you unique. For example, I have an acquaintance who has a company, and they have a certain way to do things that makes them very efficient. Nobody else does it that way. They would never divulge that certain way.
Right.
But they don't have any employees yet. And they're growing to the point where that's going to they're going to have to hire people. What do they do?
Well, if you don't have employees, you don't have a problem.
Okay.
The moment you have an employee, or a partner, you have a problem. And it's not a problem. It's a challenge. It's something that you can work around. But what you do is, by way of example, for a lot of my clients in the process-oriented thing that you're discussing, we create non-disclosures, a non-disclosure agreement. And it doesn't have to be intimidating, but it has to be clear that the processes, procedures, and methods learned while employed here are proprietary. They're a protected part of what we do. We value them. And as a consequence, when you leave here, you are not to share these processes, procedures, etc. Now, it's in a perfect world, you get a patent on a process or procedure, but you're not going to get that. Yeah. Or it takes too much time and trouble, etc., costs.
Expense.
But you create the non-disclosure agreement between yourself and the employee. And what that does is it does two things. Number one, it puts the employee on notice that what they're doing is unique and it is something you value. And number two, if the employee were to leave and let's say go to a competitor, oftentimes, if someone's hiring from a competitor, they will say, do you have any non-competes or do you have any non-disclosures?
Yes.
And you would reveal this, and then they would identify that because now the competitor who's just hired your, trusted employee is on notice that, this employee has been trained in a certain method. However, they view it as proprietary, and they could be buying themselves litigation in the event that they choose to violate that agreement.
And the business owner only has to sue once. That word gets out.
That's right. You need to take, the first time, and I've had many examples of this, but the first time you have one of those agreements and somebody violates it, depending on what the nature of the business and their wherewithal to suffer through a lawsuit, you take a very hard line so that everybody understands that I will cut off a hand to protect a thumb.
There you go.
And from that point on, the word gets through the grapevine. People know this is something you value, and they're not going to bother you.
Boy, this is fascinating because of my background in business, and I think anybody who wants to start a business should just keep this stuff in the back of their minds. Any small business owner today better be aware that if they do have something unique, like a secret sauce or a process that they don't want to get out, they better protect themselves because there's a huge chance that an employee will leave and get mad and go.
Yep, it happens every day.
Oh, my goodness. Hey, next up, we're going to go deeper into this with Frank Manning. Love that song, Alan. Good job. We're back with Frank Manning from Manning & Manning. Frank is an attorney who specializes a lot in small business, and over the years, although he's pretty young, over the years he's gotten some awfully good experience on some of the horrors that small business owners can go through if they don't cover themselves by a variety of ways. And now he's talking about non-disclosures for processes in a company. Frank, we're back. I just wanted to say thank you. This is a very interesting conversation because I do know of people who have had this problem with employees. Off microphone, you were talking about a company that you know about that an employee was going to buy.
Yes. An example of this is where you have a key employee who's worked in the business for a number of years. An owner was looking towards retirement and saw the opportunity to transition the business over to this younger key employee. And through the negotiation process, the key employee did not like how the negotiations were going. They didn't like the idea they were going to have to spend what they needed to spend to buy this gentleman's business. So as a consequence, and there was no non-disclosure, no non-compete, and quite honestly, because he was a trusted employee, the owner never imagined what was about to happen next. The key employee says, why would I spend all this money to buy your business? And he just went down the street, opened his own business and a competing business to the other gentleman's with all the information he had from his years of experience and training under this guy's tutelage, and directly competed with him. Really put a dent in the business.
I can imagine.
Yeah, because particularly when you're spending a number of years transitioning and you're introducing this person to key contacts and key individuals and showing them a little behind the curtain, as in the Oz scenario, they're a big part of what you're doing, and they're a big part of what the public sees as you're doing.
And Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore, right?
When they decide they're not going to spend hundreds of thousands to buy something when they could do it on their own for pennies on the dollar to that, they do it. And
even though it's about as unethical as it comes.
Well, you're not making any friends
yes,
doing that.
There's
so.
no question.
Yeah.
Are non-disclosures, are they within a time frame like a non-compete agreement?
No.
It could be in perpetuity? Whatever that meant?
That's the way I draft them.
Okay.
The simple truth is, we're in a capitalistic society. We promote competition. Competition gives us all the best products at the best services at the best prices. What the law attempts to avoid is unfair competition. And it's considered unfair competition for me to develop a business, you to walk in and take my knowledge base or my contact list or my whatever that you couldn't have otherwise gotten on your own and compete against me. Because now you're using my time, effort, and money and years of experience to compete against me. So when I draft a non-disclosure, it's drafted in the sense that there's no time limit to not disclosing those secrets, those trade secrets as we would call them. Would a court say after 5 years, 2 years, a year? That's fine. But when somebody leaves, if they go down the street and the next morning there's a competing business, that's unfair. If you give me a year to protect my knowledge base and my processes and procedures and improve upon them, and I have a 1 year time frame or a 2 year time frame, that's just competition.
Yes, that I can understand. We're talking about and I put you in a box, Frank, I know, because we're just talking about the first thing that a company should do is determine what makes them unique.
Yes.
Can we go to the second thing?
Well, the second would be to identify whether or not it's protectable.
Okay.
So I kind of balled them together, but, because everybody thinks their business is unique, and every business, in fact, is unique. But if what makes you unique is protectable, that's a whole different story. So you have the hot dog vendor who's selling the same hot dogs everybody else is. That's not protectable. But if you have a sauce that you put on the hot dogs and you make it at home and it's been handed down through the generations, or you created it yourself, that's protectable. So now you have something to protect. And there are industries where there's a few things to protect. And there are other industries where there's really nothing to protect. It's a commodity-based type of industry.
And I think many companies are commodity-based, and I know that companies that are startup people always say to me, "Well, I ask them how are they going to be different? What differentiates you?" And they say, "I'm going to get better service,"
right.
Which is about as crazy as anything. How do you measure that? And but maybe we should always think if we're going to start a company or we're going to build a company, let's make something unique.
Exactly.
Let's have that patent. Let's have that process. Let's have that secret sauce.
That gives you the best opportunity for success. Yes. It is not just being a great owner of a business where you run it and you treat people fair, but have something people can't get anywhere else. Or they've got to travel great distances, or don't even know that they can get it somewhere else. Then you've got a real edge. So once you've identified that unique piece, that's really important. And then the third step on this, if I'm not going too quickly,
no, it's okay,
is to identify who you need to protect it from. I mean, who are the people that you need to worry about? There are certain individuals you don't, and there are others that you do. If you're in a business alone and you're doing everything yourself, that's easy. If as business grows, and anybody who's ever grown a business has seen this, you need to bring people in and share information with them that at the very beginning makes you a little uncomfortable, because now you're really showing them the secret sauce. You're giving them the recipe, the right to make the sauce. And as you do that, you need to make sure these people are protected. These are the key people. They need to have a non-disclosure, non-compete. You need to lawyer up, for lack of a better example or better verbiage. But it's important, because if you're bringing them in and you see growth, these are the people that can really hurt you in a heartbeat. And I'm not saying everybody's bad. I'm not saying people are out to hurt you. What I'm saying is if
trust but verify is the oldest.
If you want to sleep 6 hours a night instead of 2, you do these things.
Yes, that I can understand. So really, it's the simple non-disclosure agreement that can save you millions down the road.
Absolutely. And a lot of concern.
And it doesn't cost that much. It just is. It's just good to have for certain employees.
Well, my philosophy, quite honestly, is if you're going to create one, everybody signs
Everybody signs it. Yeah,
But you won't. You know, as the owner, you know the employees that pose a potential threat, even though they're not threatening. They're the ones who know what needs to be known. But when you create something like that, there's no reason not to have everybody sign it across the board. When you create a policy, and we're talking employment for a moment here, employment law, when you create a policy, it's a policy that applies to everybody equally. So when you create a non-disclosure or non-compete,
sure.
you want it to apply to everybody across the board equally.
Wow. Okay, I got you. That is really. How does Coke keep that such a secret?
I have no idea.
I wonder if all their employees have signed a non-disclosure agreement.
Well, they must have. And, if you've ever been to the World of Coke, which I have several times in Atlanta, there are probably 50 flavors of Coke. There's not one.
Interesting.
There are different flavors
I didn't know that.
all over the world. There are licorice tape. Some different regions enjoy different flavors. So you have the United States Coke, but then you have the South American, the Europe, all over the place. I mean, and they have a whole machine. You can walk with your cup and get a little bit of taste from each of the machines from the Cokes.
I didn't know that. I've never been there. But that would be an interesting place to go.
It's
and it'd be really interesting to find out how they keep that a secret, because they've kept that a secret for 100 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's absolutely incredible. Would a process that would set you apart, that would be unique, but is not patentable, be like a specially made written software system for all their machining and customer accounts and all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. Anything that's unique that you created, it's unique to you.
Okay.
The thing that helps you run your business that you didn't just buy off the shelf. You didn't go to an Office Max and get it. And you take the steps, you password protect. Those are the things you need to password protect. You need to put safeguards in place to demonstrate that this is a protectable piece of information. So there's a lock on the door to where we keep the recipe for the 7 herbs and spices. There's a password on the client list, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the steps you need to take, the overt steps, to show this is protected information. Now you're going to sign the non-compete if you want to get past that door, or you want this password into the computer system.
Folks, we're out of time for this segment. Frank, thank you for being here. Think non-disclosures.
Thank you for having me.
And